Hey, read through the word. Today is January 13th, and I'm calling this lesson Sibling Rivalry. This is one of those texts that I was joking with Wendy about this, because if you read this is because I said that about the begats the other week. It is the entire day's reading. I know you might be a little confused by it, but I'm here to go over it with you. Is nothing but begats, descendants. So basically everything today is a reading of the descendants of Esau. It says this is the account of the descendants of Esau, also known as Edom. And that's Genesis 36:1. And that's where we're going to begin our readings. But everything else is taking us through Genesis. Then we'll hop back over to First Chronicles. And when we get to go a little bit more, I'll explain First Chronicles and the point of First Chronicles. But as we go through, I really wanted, so where in the world do I go with this lesson? So, my big thing was you see that I'm already doing this. Wendy has suggested I could put a map up or something. I reference maps constantly, like you see the map that I do. Anytime I teach, there's always a map and a timeline I reference. If you'll see, I point to things because I think you see the timeline that I see in my brain. I also reference maps and I draw those. So I'm sorry if you're new here and you're just getting used to that about me, but that's one of the things I do. Those two things help me a lot understanding the Bible and piecing things together. And so I reference them a lot. And if we were in a typical classroom together, I would be passing out maps like crazy. Every time I teach everything, I pass out lots of maps and handouts to help, because I want you to see what I see that's invisible before you. So one book I do want to reference for you is this book right here. This is What the Bible is All About, which if you've been around here, I reference that as the best Bible handbook ever made. And we'll talk more about it at other times. But this is reproducible maps, charts, timelines, and illustrations. If this kind of stuff, and some of you comment and talk to me in the comments in the study about you really like maps or you really like timelines or these kind of things help you, this book is a great reference tool, and I will link the book as well. But it's a great tool to have. So this is what I want to talk about with our guys Jacob and Esau. So at this point in our timeline, Jacob and Esau have reunited. Jacob is coming back home, bringing his 2 wives, their 2 maidservants that he's had children with, and all the children and all the livestock that he had gotten with Abe while he was working all that time for Laban and had been away from home. And they come back and they're going to be reunited. And then at this point, they split. Everything's great. Esau didn't want to kill Jacob anymore. And then the Bible tells us a little bit about Esau. So Jacob stays in the land of Canaan. And he's going to stay there, and then we'll continue his story. But also remember, as we, I think we talked about it last week, to look about the idea that just because we're tracing the storyline of one family, as God grows a family, and then uses that family to turn into a nation, and then from that nation, he will bring a descendant, will bless the whole world. As we're tracing that story, God has not put a pause button on the rest of the world. God is still working everywhere else as well. He just wants us to see his rescue plan, his story for the rest of the world through the nation, what will become the nation of Israel. But as we see this, so Jacob will stay in that land for right now. But there's more to come with his story. But Esau. So let's talk about Esau. Esau's family is going to move to Seir, which is in the southern Transjordan. Okay. Play along with me right here. All right. this is when I have to do some backwards stuff as far as I have to think about which way you see things. So, a lot of times I have to do this and think about, this will be, so I got to point that way. All right, so this over that way would be to the west. This would be, no, that's to the east, that's to the west. Wow. Okay, when I'm in a classroom, I'll actually walk it and make the map for you on the floor so you would see this. So what's going to happen is over here is the Mediterranean. Over here would be we're doing the borders of Canaan, would be the Jordan River. And this land, this strip of land right here that I'm standing in is going to change names quite a few times over the course of the entire Bible. So this is the Jordan River. Up here to the north of this is the Sea of Galilee, the Canaan Sea. There's other names that it's called, but mainly you know it as the Sea of Galilee. Down in the southern region of the bottom part, what we call the bottom part of the Jordan River, at the south of the Jordan River is the Dead Sea. And so here's our little land. Now, Canaan is the land that Jacob is going to live in. His brother is going to move south. He's moving south. And what they call Transjordan, over the Jordan. So south of the Dead Sea, down in that area, and just to the southeast of the Dead Sea would be the land of what will be called Edom. Because remember, Esau is, they tell us he's also called Edom because Edom meant red. The land that his people will settle is called Edom. His descendants are called the Edomites. We will see them numerous times throughout the Bible. They live in the southeast end of the Dead Sea. Israel will rule over Edom with David's conquest. So quite a bit of time from now, 1,000 years or so, when David takes over the land and conquest and makes everything into one united kingdom. At that point, they will rule. Israel will rule over Edom, and you'll see that in the book of 2 Samuel and 1 Kings. And they will last until Edom will actually rebel and gain their independence during the reign of King Jehoram of Judah, which happens 2 Kings 8, I believe, is where that happens, and they get there. So, but here's the thing that's going to keep on happening. You'll see it as we trace. So a lot of this are spoiler alerts throughout the Bible. So you might not, we're not there yet, and it's coming, and when it comes, act surprised. So when you get into like the book of, as they're making the journey home, so Joshua, there's going to be some major, and you see it in the book of Numbers, that there's some times that Edom will so remember, Edom and Israel, nation-wise, are cousins. They're descended from two brothers. And so, Edom won't even let Israel come through their land. They're like, no, you're not touching it. We're not letting you go back home. We're holding no grudges. So they do all of that. And even go as far to, now I'm going way far ahead of time, after Israel splits into two different kingdoms, and we'll talk about that when we get into the book of 2 Kings, after they split, and during the time of King Nebuchadnezzar, that you know Nebuchadnezzar from Daniel probably, and Edom allies itself, the nation itself allies itself with Nebuchadnezzar, and in invading Judah, as they destroy the temple, thinking they're going to get away with it. But then the Babylonians turn on Edom, and they conquer Edom as well. So this is what I'm saying is this is this struggle that started with brothers in the womb is going to be a struggle that continues all the way into the New Testament. So Edom fought with the Jews many times and became one of the nations they're actually going to be conquered by the Maccabees during the intertestamental period. If you were with us last year, and if you can get into last year's teachings, you can still add that to your cart and do that. We did a special teaching where I do Between the Testaments, one of my favorite things to teach, the 400 years of silence, and I discussed that. But during that time, the Maccabees ruled Israel, and they take them over as well. So, and then you will finally find, you'll see Edom a couple of more times. You'll see Edom in the book of, when we get to the minor prophets, you'll see Obadiah. Obadiah is a prophet that speaks directly to Edom as God calls them to account for what they've done. He calls them, you were supposed to be your brother's keeper, and you weren't. And God is going to talk about the judgment that will fall upon them because of how they treated Israel. And then you will see them again through a descendant that is a descendant of Edom. In the New Testament, everything becomes under Roman control and everybody gets new names. That's when you see Israel become known as Judea, and then you'll see Edom will become known as Idumea. And we meet an Idumean king that marries into a Jewish family to claim a throne, and his name is Herod. So Esau's descendant is Herod, and the Jacob's descendant is Jesus. So, I mean, do you see that this was a conflict, and that God told us all this was going to happen, and it keeps going? So, all of this said, we have descendants, and we have maps, and we have thousands of years of history and conflicts and stuff that's never resolved. And, well, it is resolved at the cross, but all of this stuff's going on. What does it mean? What is our takeaway from this? And what is, and we come to the question, why does God bless those he knows are not going to serve him and will not love him? Why? Because in the Bible, I mean, we see all what you see in our readings today is list upon list of, in ancient Near East tradition, would have been blessing upon blessing upon blessing for Esau because of his descendants. That, I mean, you have all of this huge family. And I mean, Herod's going to become a king. Not that he's a great person, but Herod. And he's going to have all this power. And some people will think power is a blessing. So, I mean, but in the Bible, God says, Jacob have I loved and Esau have I hated. Now, we can talk about that more when we get there. But what he means is, what I think we need to twist what we think. Why is he blessing those people? Why is he blessing any of us? God has a plan. If he could only work with perfect people, who would he work with? Because as we're going to watch, Jacob's not perfect. His family's not perfect. There's lots of problems there. But he made a promise, and he made a covenant, and he has a plan. So what's the lesson here with Edom and Esau? If he will bless those that he does not love, that are not part of that covenant, how much more will he bless those who are a part? I mean, because the greatest blessing that comes from the covenant is Jesus. That's the greatest blessing we have. If God could only bless perfect people, he would have no one to work with. And so many times we can do that. We look, well, why does God do that? And why does God bless them? And why does God do that? We do though, but what about him and her? This always goes back to sibling rivalry. When you were a child, or if you're a parent and your children, one of the most common things I have, I've not talked about my kids a lot in this one. I've got 3 children. I've got a 20-year-old, I've got a 16-year-old, and a 10-year-old. And so, the number one thing, well, what? But they did this. But what about them? But what about them? And I think so many times when we look at, but why is Esau getting all this? Why is his family getting all of these? Why is God blessing them? It's real. When we get there, that's not the right question. Studying the Bible is really not about getting the right answers. It's learning the right questions to ask. The right question is, why does he believe and bless me? I've done nothing to be deserving of it, but yet he does. I always go back to C.S. Lewis. C.S. Lewis, Chronicles of Narnia. He wrote a book. One of my favorites is called The Horse and His Boy. And there's a conversation in there that someone's been wounded and they ask Aslan, why did you hurt that person, or why were they wounded? And he's like, really? That's really none of your business. My story is with them. Your business is your story with me. So I think so many times, where do we take this as the sibling rivalry, as it goes through all this? What can we learn from it? We spend so much time focused on what everybody else is getting and what's going on with everybody else that we forget God has an individual story, an individual plan with each of us. How much more could we accomplish for the kingdom of God if we were concerned about how he wants to use us for his plan and not what he's doing with everybody else? I think that's what we need to see when we look at sibling rivalry. We're going to get to the heart of it. It still happens with us today. And I hope we learn from Jacob and Esau. We'll see you next time on Read Through the Word.